Welcome to the Quantum City Initiative, a show about the most important stories, ideas at the intersection of AI, cities, real estate, and the leaders shaping the future of how and where we live and work. Do you save and reinvigorate cities, or are you building new ones?
What is most critical for cities in the future with the sort of AI factory race to work?
Ep 33, the QCI show, Larry Legend, Patrick Ewing, love every bit of it. How you doing this morning, man?
Doing all right. Got a little cold from, I think, our LA trip last week, and then being around my kids. Just gutting it out here on the show this week.
Yeah, I'm not a little thrilled with my hair this morning. A little bit of tough hair day. But, we got to grind through it. Hey, listen, we didn't film last week. You mentioned we were out in LA. Let's talk about that for a bit. The show opener, the big one today, or we got two big ones for that matter. We hosted some friends out in Los Angeles for a CAB, a customer advisory board. It's a good time. We saw Team USA win the World Cup game. How was it, Chase? What were we doing? Tell us a little bit about it.
It was great. We like to do these closed door sessions, Vegas rules. What gets said in the meeting stays in the meeting, so that people can kind of share open and honestly about the challenges we're all seeing. And this cab in particular, I thought was really interesting because we were tackling, it's not just commercial real estate, right? I think everyone is trying to figure out with how fast AI moves and what it can do, what it can't do, how to start to advance your organization in a way that you're not going to fall behind, because this is a generational opportunity, while also not spinning so far off the path before things are proven that you don't waste a bunch of money. And I think there's some really good conversation around it. I think the room was really interesting because we had people, I would say everybody's still early, but even if you just think of the curve of early with AI, people are in very different positions in terms of, do they have a dedicated strategy that's being supported by executive leadership, or have they not really organized around that? So I thought it was great. I thought the room was great. So hats off to you for putting together a killer room of folks who I'm sure you'll run us through who attended. And Team USA, I was the biggest pessimist in the world because I've been watching the US men's team embarrass themselves for I can't even count how many World Cups. Boy, did they look good.
Yeah, listen, I'm not a huge soccer. I guess I am a big soccer fan, football fan. Mostly watch my 8-year-old play. I'm a 6-year-old, but man, that was fun. Now,
pretty good boot back in like youth soccer, third, fourth grade. You could boot it. I remember you did the goal kicks.
That's right. That translated to playing varsity football, being the kicker, and then on the offensive line. I think I'm the only person to set a record to be kicker and O-line.
You don't see that what a dynamic player. What a dynamic athlete.
That's right. Listen, just a quick recap on what we do, and then I want to ask you just a few questions, themes. I know it was closed door Vegas rules, but I think there's some learnings that I think we can pull on a little bit. But anyways, we host these experiential events. They're customer advisory boards. One of the things that we had been doing pre-COVID was we build alongside our customers. Commercial real estate inherently is a very bespoke industry. Every building is a snowflake. Every building is unique, right? I think we've mentioned those on the show quite a bit. While we do offer a SaaS solution, a lot of it, and we pride ourselves by building with our customers. What we do is a couple of times a year, at least pre-COVID, and now we've just started to do them again. We get some of our top customers, some of the most forward-thinking folks in a room, and we hash it out. We go through what's happening in the market. Obviously, this one was focused on AI, and we'll get to that in a bit. And then we talk about our product roadmap, what we're building, what we're seeing, how we're working, how we're developing, what our rate of change is, what our pace of change. And to be honest, it's a really good time. Now, one of the new things really that we implemented over the past, call it 18 months or so, or 12 months, was the experiential layer to it. And we obviously, and this is talk in our book, we're very big believers in experience for a couple of different reasons. One, when you get a shared bond in person and you share an incredible experience, you could be more outspoken, right? You create an amazing dialogue. So anyways, we were out in LA, like Chase was saying, this past week. I'm not going to mention any names, but we had customers executives from LPC, Hines, LBA, ARE, Piedmont, Swig, MetLife, and Hudson Pacific. So it was a stacked room. Run a show. If people want us to run off our idea, we do a nice dinner. Obviously, Seafood Towers, that's my jam. And then we get into the cab, and then we do an experiential layer, and we obviously went to the game. This was the AI summit. And like you were talking about, Chase, everybody is relatively early. But can you pull apart maybe just a couple of the threads and themes that we were talking about in the room without disclosing any of the, it's not necessarily special sauce, but breaking any of our Vegas rules on how folks were thinking about implementing AI, like you said, whether it's executive, whether it's top down, where they are, and then do these individuals feel that they're ahead, behind, on pace? Give me a little summary.
Yeah. So we'll throw it into kind of the three buckets. The folks that are, I would say, in the earliest stage, there's not much to talk about. I think their company hasn't emphasized AI, and I think those people left saying, okay, we need to start thinking about this. So that's one bucket for everybody out there. If that's you, you're not alone. Then there's the bucket in the middle where I'd say probably the majority is sitting, which is we've started to piece together, whether it's a committee, someone who is overseeing AI as an initiative, right? They're starting to get organized. They're doing kind of the typical exploratory, let's pick a big LLM chat provider and pay for it as a company and let our people start to use OpenAI, Claude, whatever. I think those were the only two. Maybe some people are using Microsoft Copilot. And I think that's probably the bell curve right in the middle. I think most people are in that bucket. And then there's
which is exploratory. It's trying, right? It's a lot of trial and error, trying things that work, that don't work. I think that was like some of the best conversation was the folks trying, okay, we tried this, went down the rabbit hole, it didn't go that way.
Right. And I think the third bucket, the people who were the furthest along, had a distinct point of view that was, we as an industry in commercial real estate have typically thought they're pretty open with one another. I mean, one could even, in certain circumstances, there have been people in commercial real estate who are trying to put together groups from different accounts that would help anoint winners in prop tech, which I reminded one of our friends. This was several years ago before everything got disrupted with COVID and interest rates. I was like, that is collusion. So I'd be careful with that. But I think this is a little different where they're saying, look, we fundamentally believe this is going to be deeply strategic and a differentiator.
Yeah.
And I think where everybody needs to get to, and I think this is part of the structural problem when you think about the different kind of layers of the stack in commercial real estate, is AI is only as good as obviously the data that it sits on, and then how deeply you understand operational processes. And I think a lot of the people with the money at the top are so disconnected from a substantial portion of data at the building level, which is a huge problem. And they're significantly disconnected from operational processes and obviously any of the data that comes out of that. They tend to be very good at looking at your typical financial statements, and they have these, macro theses on where they're going to be vetting their capital from a market, sub-market perspective, asset classes, things like that. But the yield from AI is going to come from operational expertise. And so I think the very large asset managers who don't really know the day-to-day of the little things between what the security guard does, what the building engineer does, what the junior and senior property manager does, how in-house brokerage works, what asset managers actually do, which is you have a range of people that are strategically active with the asset. And then you have people who seemingly spend all their day doing sensitivity modeling without actually impacting the sensitivity. I think that chasm really needs to be crossed. And I think you're going to start to see, particularly the public REITs where, they are more verticalized. I think they have a certain advantage in the AI era, being close to the tenant customer, being close to the operations, and being able to see through what true change management would be. So I think that's next for the people that are starting to get AI pilled, as the technology community would say.
So a lot of people think that AI is it's like an easy button, or it's like a magic button, right? It can come in and just make things more efficient. Plug it in, integrate MCP, API, whatever it may be. What you're talking about, though, is a significant amount of work to get set up to then achieve those results. So my question for you is, if there was a takeaway, and there was a handful, I guess, knowing what you know and what we know from working in our own business, deploying these technologies, and then hearing from our customers firsthand this past week, what are a couple of takeaways that folks should be thinking about, and maybe some tangible action items as specifically related to commercial real estate that they could take action on, call it in the next, I don't know, month, handful of weeks, to feel comfortable in that middle or that advanced bucket that you were talking about?
Yeah, a few things. First and foremost is, and my daughter's probably going to get involved in this segment.
That's
so
perfect.
Here's
AI native.
snuck her way in here. Yeah, hi, dear. Can you hear her?
A little bit.
First and foremost is, I think you do have to go find, we see this at every single account, right? There is the senior operations, property management person. Sometimes they're more at the portfolio level. Sometimes you have the person at the building level who just knows in and out, like how everything runs, right? How the sausage gets made. I think you need to find those people, because one of the most important things is the process mapping of how does work actually get done, right? So that's step number one. Step number two is you have to find, I think, the people that are AI curious, right? People who are messing around with it on their own. They're instinctual in how they use it. Like, they get it, right? Some of these people are technical, but some of them are not, right? We've seen this in our own.
And some of the most technical people we know are, I don't know, nervous to maybe adopt. They're not AI curious at all.
Yeah. So I think you need to find your AI curious people and start to wed those two in a working group. And the third, which I still am somewhat shocked, I still haven't heard anybody with a good answer to this, is there needs to be the right incentive structure. And so everyone says, well, it's for the good of the company. And while I get that, I don't know, most people are dealing with their day-to-day with what's right in front of them. And we talk about it a lot when we talk about policy and things like that on the show, which is, show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior. Most people act in their own self-interest. And a lot of people, when you think about those, the knowledge in those veteran operations types, like, it's not an obvious thing for them to understand that this is probably going to make them more impactful, not less. They probably view it as, oh, this is going to take my job, which all of the data shows that that's not the case, but they don't follow it like sport, right? So I think you need to create the right incentive structure for adoption targets. And yeah, you can start on adoption and then you can shift it over time to business outcomes. But I think that's a big missing piece.
Love that. All right. So listen, we have next week, hopefully we'll film next week, but we have a jam-packed week. We have our European customers all flying into town for our EMEA customer advisory board. Same situation, same setup, a little more logistical as we got folks coming in. And for those customers, and we'll talk about this on the show, we have folks coming in from Tishman Speyer, HB Reavis, ARC, JP Morgan, Shelbourne, KEO, Turner & Townsend, The Collection, Absoma, and Primea. So we are going to run this back, the AI Summit, for our European customers as well. And we'll report back on that. We'll be at a handful of the games at Boston Stadium, aka Gillette. Now, before we transition, to the Razor. Before we transition to the news, as there was a lot of news this past week, one of the things that we talked about, I don't know, last episode or two episodes ago, about infrastructure with regards to the World Cup. We were at SoFi Stadium, and we're about to be at Gillette. I heard Gillette's an absolute disaster show, but we were at SoFi Stadium, and everybody walking in, packed like sardine cans, was wondering the same thing we talked about. SoFi Stadium sells out and hosts the National Football League every Sunday, or almost every Sunday, where 72,000 people come in and out of that stadium, and it's a well-oiled machine. Why, when the same amount of seats are filling up, the same 72,000, same with Gillette, the same individuals, why is there so much traffic going around? The talk of the traffic jam, as we were sardines, was that it has nothing to do with the infrastructure. It's got to do with the people who are coordinating. It's not the NFL or the stadium staff running it. It's FIFA, and they simply don't know the lay of the land. How was your experience getting into SoFi, Chase? Speaking of infrastructure.
I'd give it a B-. I was prepared for a D or an F, the way people were talking about, oh, it's going to be 3 hours to drive 10 miles, whatever.
It was an hour 40 to go about 8 miles, but yeah,
it wasn't that bad. I didn't think it was that bad. And maybe that was the strategy, right?
Yeah.
Prepare for the worst. If so, nailed it. Now, we also could have gotten out like probably half an hour earlier and just walked to the stadium from where
Right.
we were.
Yep.
We did for a while. So we really got jammed up close to the stadium. But I thought they did a pretty good job with egress. I don't know. I thought it was fun. And wow, SoFi, what an architectural marvel. They did a great job with that stadium. I do think it's interesting. FIFA absolutely jams up. I'm surprised the owners participate in this. Chicago apparently said absolutely not, but they make you cover up your sponsorships on the building. They take 100% of the concessions revenue, ticket revenue. Obviously, media is theirs. So the owners basically just get, a small rental fee that apparently is not a lot. And my sister, who's a professor at Babson covering all things sports law, was like, yeah, it's not a great deal. And part of the reason they do it is for exposure, but like what exposure, since it can't be SoFi Stadium or whatever, you get none of the name recognition. So
right, it was LA Stadium, it's Boston Stadium.
Shows the power of FIFA. But I thought it was all right.
We'll see what happens with Boston Stadium, and we'll talk more about that.
I'm more pessimistic about Route 1, and I do feel bad for our MIA customers because it says Boston Stadium. Foxborough sure ain't Boston, but they'll find that out. They'll get to experience lovely Foxborough.
And listen, we all know we take a bus. I get the DJ.
It's part of the experience.
I get the DJ going. We get some karaoke. Anyways, let's get into the news. A lot of news this past week. No, we're not going to get to the news. This is news, but here's an anchor story, and then we'll get to the quick hits. So this is an interesting one, and this kind of shows the juxtaposition and sort of the AI race and the AI war and why it's so critical between the United States and China. So China has, or what they're doing is they're drafting a plan to spend roughly $300 billion over the next 5 years, building a nationwide network of interconnected AI computing hubs, so data centers and so on. They want to do it almost entirely without American technology. Fine, knew that was coming. To me, what struck me about this story and the thread I want to pull on is how China is thinking about this, right? Again, what they're talking about is effectively compute as a national utility. Okay, so they're spending 300 billion. A grand scheme of AI, not a ton of money. Okay, however, if you think about what's happening in the States, we're struggling to build compute significantly. The only man who can do it is the rocket man, Mr. Musk, with the help from obviously some of his friends. But the reality is, with this approach, will this put America or the United States well behind China, whereas we're leading the AI race? If you listen to more of the technical podcasts out there, we're ahead. But this approach to create this national utility of compute kind of seems like the right approach. What's your take?
We're going to find out, because it's a challenging kind of time to parse this. Historically, anything centrally planned has turned out pretty poorly.
Okay.
Soviet Union was a great example of we're
Mhm.
gonna dictate what kind of output we need as a country, and that ended very poorly. I think what China has done well is they have this hybrid model, which is they pick these national priorities. They take a little bit of a more long-term view where the CCP helps, whether it's subsidize or provide the right incentives for their different territories to attack these things. And then there is some form of competition between the territories. So it's like a quasi central planning, quasi market forces model. In terms of the capital, 300 billion, like I know it sounds like a very big number, but it's not that big compared to what the US I think is doing if you were to total everything up.
And Microsoft alone have earmarked 700 billion for AI spend just in 2026. So again,
Right.
the numbers that sort of us here in the States are spending is significantly more. However, again, this approach was just what you were calling the centrally planned, right?
Right. And I think I like that the big companies are, signaling that they're investing in this
Mhm.
because they're probably some of the, if not the most sophisticated organizations on the planet. They have to answer to shareholders and things like that. So it's not just a government program where there's going to be a bunch of waste, fraud, and abuse. So I do that angle for the US. I think they're taking a more global view, obviously, than just the China network. On the flip side, where China at 300 billion, and we talked about this with their train station, I think where China is super successful is it's kind of like the Zuckerberg model. Meta isn't particularly good at invention. They're very good at fast following, right? They take an idea that somebody has traction behind, and they quickly fast follow. They make some improvements on it, and they use their distribution. They kind of squash Snapchat's
Instagram
upside.
stories. Yeah.
Totally. And that's the Chinese model where, what they're doing with their open source models and things. Like I think one of the big AI founders in China was saying that to catch Fable or Mythos, I forget which version of Anthropic's top model he was talking about, but he said they're probably like 3 to 6 months behind. Now, I would handicap that if he's saying 3 to 6, it's probably 6 to 12. But that seems to be working for them. I do think it's important that we have people build on the US AI stack. I would love to see Meta get back in the game. I'd love to see some of the players that were trying to do open source models, like more competition in US AI from big players, the better, which it's good to see. Google and Alphabet are rolling out and trying to compete with NVIDIA on the chip side, which is good. They've got a big partnership with Anthropic. So more competition, the better. I think the big thing for the US is not whether China is spending 300 billion or not. It's whether we can get out of our own way on permitting and things like that. And I think the AI founders, in terms of how they got to stop messaging the apocalypse with their own technology. Like it just makes me hate them.
We talked about the PR side of it, and we'll get to some of that in the quick hits. Now, the question I have for you before we move on is from the commercial real estate side, we have talked about the need for power. We've talked about the need for water. We've talked about what the rising interest rates have done to the sort of the housing markets and the real estate markets as a whole. And we're talking about the issues it and the timing it takes to build this compute. Are we drastically underpricing land here in the States that has power and water rights attached to it? Or will this net out? Or it won't matter because Elon Musk is going to put all compute above us in space and satellites and so on. To me, just seems like there's a massive opportunity. I mean, we talked about this. These AI companies are going to be the biggest landlords on the planet. I can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think both things can be true. I think if you have land, water, fiber, I don't see that degrading in
Power
value for a very, very long time. And do I believe that the Rocket Man will have data centers in space? Yeah, I bet. I think they're saying like 1 to 2 years, so I'd peg it at 2 to 4.
Yeah.
He tends to always get there. He the way that he measures these things is with a 50% kind of early, late. He's like, we're always within 50%. He said they'd produce 1 million, whatever Tesla Model X's. I think it was, I forget if it was 2017 or whatever, but he said it would be in like 2 years and it was in 3. So he was 50% off to the delayed side. But there have been other times where they're 50% early on, say, like probably reusable rockets and some of those things, right? Part of the technique and strategy is you set these what seem like insane kind of deadlines, and you're always surprised at what talented people can deliver. We've talked about it, but Jensen Huang has the best story of when Elon built the supercomputer with NVIDIA chips. I don't know if, I think it was in like Tennessee or something. Jensen was like, it's a 3-year planning process and a 1-year build. And he was like, and Elon built it in 19 days. So no one tends to cover when he outrageously beats the timeline.
Yep.
It's just kind of hate. So I think both can be true.
So randomly, you were talking about how you wish Meta and Facebook would maybe innovate a little bit more. Before we go to the quick hits, did you see, this is a lovely story, did you see in the news this week, there was a significant amount of layoffs at Facebook, Meta, and a handful of tech companies. We could argue whether that's AI or whether they just overhired or a combination of the two. Doesn't matter. The morale is apparently at record low at Facebook. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what the CTO said they were doing?
What?
Just guess what they're doing. Bring morale up.
Snacks?
They increased the snack budget.
No, really?
National news, man. Increase them snacks.
There is such a thing as a free lunch after a significant amount of layoffs.
I get it. You're in a bad mood.
You really did say snacks? I swear I didn't look.
It's not in the show notes. It was something that just came to mind. It's a snack budget. Listen, you're in a bad mood.
I was going to go with that or ping pong tables.
You're grinding it out. You're pissed off. Morale's low. Go to the kitchen. A little bag of Cheetos.
Snack it out.
Get a little snacks. Oh, come on. Love it.
Oz, right? He's been there from day one. I think it's
and also it's simultaneously good for the GLP-1 market too, because the more snacks that Facebook gives people, sorry, bad joke.
Food companies are in trouble.
All right, let's go to the quick hits. Okay, Warsh's first Fed meeting. The discussion, obviously, upon the swearing in, which we've covered, he was sworn in May 22nd as the 17th Fed chair. Most of that discussion and most of the swearing in was around whether or not Warsh was just a puppet for President Trump. And we know President Trump has been calling for rate cuts for a long time. Again, the discussion was that Warsh is going to come in and cut and provide really no analysis, no data, whatever it may be. Anyways, inflation has actually been ticking back up. Could be the Iran war, could be a number of things. Energy prices have been going up, so on and so on. Just in the past week or so, there's a new ceasefire in Iran. The Strait of Hormuz has been reopened. At the time of this, news is changing fast. Energy prices are actually falling. The Fed decided to hold rates. What's your take?
I think it's the right move when you look at the numbers. Like I think the dot plot would split down the middle, 50-50 on rate hikes before the end of the year. I think, 6 out of the 18.
Yeah, which was new, right? I mean, the whole notion of this was we were talking about rate cuts or hold steady. Now we're talking about rate hikes again, right?
Yeah.
Because inflation can go hot.
It's going up and the job market is not getting obliterated by AI. So that's the mandate of the Fed. Now, Warsh also, I think, has come out. He's supposed to be somewhat of an innovative force, like in terms of the data collection methods of the Fed and these things. Smarter investors than myself typically say they look to more market forces on certain data rather than the Fed. He said they're no longer going to forecast, right? And so they used to talk about what they think the Fed would do in the future. He thinks the Fed should not be forecasting and trying to essentially manipulate the market. So it's like you show up each month and you hear what we're doing. You guys go work with the data that you have at hand. So I think we're heading into a very interesting time because a lot of the inflation is tied up, obviously, in energy prices. Some other things are looking, I wouldn't say good, but fine. So it's going to come down to, I think, a lot of this Iran deal, which seemed to be going well until last night, seemingly, where the skirmish between Israel and Lebanon picked back up, and JD Vance was supposed to be in Switzerland today, and he pulled out of that. if they could get that behind them, which I think they really want to do before the 250th anniversary, July 4th, right? If they can get that back on track when they announced it, obviously the market's ripped. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And again, listen, we're still watching this closely, obviously, because when we talk about the extend and pretend, we talk about CMBS, we talk about all the loans. There's a significant amount of loans set to restructure at the end of 26. Obviously, they're driven by the 10-year and the rates here. So we'll continue on this. But again, the good news is these refis are happening. We are unstuck. We're not just sitting there waiting. So a rate hike, while certainly to me would signal the wrong direction in the industry we play in, but it wouldn't be devastating as it has been in the past. Okay. Speaking, let's go back to AI. You mentioned a couple of fun new models, Fable 5 and Mythos or whatever it may be. We heard about Mythos. We talked about that one. But Fable 5, the new Anthropic model, launched Claude Fable 5 on June 9th. Oh my God, it was incredible. It could do everything. It made me breakfast. It tied my shoes, got me dressed. It was unbelievable. And what they did was they said, it's way more powerful. It's going to eat up way more compute. So your bills are going to go way up, but we're going to subsidize that for a little bit, which was great. It was the talk of our AI summit because it happened last week. 3 days later, what happens? The US government said, and they put an export control directive forcing Anthropic to shut both Fable 5 and restricted Mythos 5 for everyone. What's your take?
I think like the big issue here is philosophical. I don't think we talked about it. I think Bill Gurley has sounded the alarm on the Anthropic founders. For anyone who's in commercial real estate, not familiar with Bill Gurley, he's a legendary venture capitalist who has since retired from his fund. So he doesn't really have a dog in the fight anymore, but he's pointed everyone to the Anthropic Constitution and their.
Yeah, what pod was that? Was that on All In or was that on his BG2?
I think he did it on his. I think he did it on All In.
Okay, so if you want to check it out,
yeah, and you can just go and I don't know, search REO Loving Machines poem, and you can read poem. They got real. It's
yeah,
like,
that's real. That's real.
Yeah, like I get Gurley's concern. Like this guy views his creation as our overlord, and that is a bad sci-fi movie. So yeah, I think the administration doesn't like them. I think they view them as the far left woke leaning, like we should all be subservient and censored by AI. We should all be thankful that AI is watching over us. So I think this is kind of a philosophical argument. I think the administration put a lot of its clout behind it being good for everybody, and Anthropic keeps saying the thing that we've built is going to be terrible for everybody because it's so powerful it's going to take your jobs. So I think it's a clash of kind of the belief and the narrative that should be out there, and you could see it. Trump did a AI summit in France, and the seeding is always telling, right? So he had Sam Altman from OpenAI on one side, and then he had Demis, the CEO of DeepMind for Google. They got to sit next to him, and Dario was all the way down at the end of the table, sitting next to Macron. So that was clearly like you're going to sit in the corner kind of move. And they put him near Besant and a few other people who I think have been assigned to just, anytime they go on the news, they let Dario have it. So it was like, all right, we're going to make you uncomfortable down here. So I think hopefully they get past it, and hopefully like the Anthropic guys aren't as like weird sci-fi villain as they seem to be coming off as, because it is a little concerning.
It's troubling. It's certainly
but
troubling.
I think for commercial real estate, the question is because this is at the level of national security, and if you're putting a lot of money into the box that houses the foundation AI, the question is like the building's value depends on what's legally allowed to run inside of it, right? And so do you have to model certain risk in where it's like, all right, it's predominantly a whatever Anthropic data center, and these yahoos are writing about loving AI overlords, and they could be cut off. So I think it's introducing risk into, frankly, a market that shouldn't have that level of risk if these folks were a little bit smarter from a communications perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about, obviously, when you're talking about risk, you're talking about underwriting the data centers, and can you underwrite them differently depending on the models that are being powered
Who's
within the box?
and does the tenor write poems about our overlords? I mean, we talked about this, but the guy literally was like, it should decide economically who gets paid. That is the creepiest thing.
Yeah, but we're talking about it. So
Yeah, I mean, he also was like, we should return to our mammal brethren and sistren in nature, and AI will watch over us.
sounds awesome.
It's,
I don't know. Actually, I don't,
you're a big nature guy. That's going to work well for you. I am not.
I just walk around, my tarp off, like in nature, and AI is going to be what? Just
I will swoop down and be like, wow, what a chill guy you are. Here's
just
some money.
delivering me money and food and what? I don't know. All right. Sounds great. Maybe. Yeah, it's a little weird. Okay. SpaceX. We talked about this. Rocket Man. SpaceX went public last week. We covered it a little bit. Biggest IPO ever. There's a phenomenal amount of memes, candidly, from a lot of people who don't understand how wealth creation works about Mr. Musk and how much money he's added to his bank account, which isn't necessarily real because it's paper gains, whatever it may be. It's pretty funny. But the news that we wanted to cover, and we reported on this a little bit earlier, we talked about this, was the Cursor right of first refusal, or sort of the deal that they had penned prior to SpaceX going public. But what happened was SpaceX debuted on the NASDAQ. They raised almost $90 billion, absolutely massive. Price went to about 210. A couple of days later, they did execute the right to purchase Cursor for $60 billion in an all-stock deal. I think the all-stock deal is interesting. I think the timing is interesting. And then I think, why would SpaceX buy Cursor is also very interesting. Which one do you want to take first, Chase?
Let's talk about the brilliance of the deal.
Yeah.
Like, he's just playing 3D chess. So he got the call option, knowing that after the IPO, there'd be kind of the stock bump at typically day of, but day of listing. And because it's an all stock deal, he exercised the option at the height, which means the shareholders are only getting 3.4% dilution to buy something for $60 billion that has reach into 4 million plus engineers, 4 billion of annualized ARR revenue, the license revenue that Cursor gets. And when you think about one of the things that they were getting, I wouldn't say dinged. There was nothing about SpaceX that got dinged, but one of the few questions, I wouldn't even say weaknesses, was like, all right, what you've paid for compute and Colossus and all these things, how are you going to fill demand? Now he bought something that, instead of selling it to Anthropic at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if they cut off the compute to Anthropic, gave it to Cursor as it gets some Elon traction behind it. So what a deal. What a deal.
Brilliant maneuver. I still can't get over the folks who are holding on to Twitter stock now have SpaceX stock. That's unbelievable.
The other thing that's just hilarious, I think we've talked about this in the past, when, the smartest technology investors between Sequoia and Andreessen and everybody was like, oh, Elon's going to lose a ton of their money on the Twitter, the next deal. Like, you can not like his style, whatever. You can criticize him on that for sure. But is he going to make them money? Yeah, probably. I think he had a plan for that. And sure enough, Twitter merges with XAI. XAI is like the core of, it's an AI company more than a rocket company.
Right.
Like, it's a little foolish to bet it long term against Elon. There's going to be ups and downs the way that he operates, but it's a sign of lesser intelligence if you're like, oh, he's not good at making money.
Yeah, you did. We should, Justin, let's note this, do our own little analysis on the return on capital invested on some of Elon's business. You made a comment about that to me the other day. I can't stop thinking about, this guy's got to be the most efficient
capital allocator in history. I mean, you look at what OpenAI has raised in terms of hundreds of billions, whatever. He built SpaceX with 10 billion, essentially.
It's impressive.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Impressive. Okay, number 4 on the quick hit docket today. KKR launches Helix, a $10 billion one-stop shop for AI infrastructure. So KKR, In partnership with the Kuwait Investment Authority, NVIDIA, and Vistra launched Helix Digital Infrastructure, $10 billion long duration commitments. Basically, you're looking at private equity. It's a matter of time before everybody gets into infrastructure. Call it infrastructure as a service, call it data centers as a service, call it whatever it may be. This is a massive amount of private capital. Again, we've talked about Meta and Google and OpenAI and Anthropic and Elon Musk, these large companies putting all this money into infrastructure. We've talked about some of the commercial real estate holding companies, obviously putting money into data centers. KKR is kind of doing its own thing now with this one-stop shop. Are we going to see more of this, Chase? Are we going to see more, I guess, privately funded? I mean, maybe you could see a data center infrastructure REIT. You could do public offering for a hand just specifically focused on compute.
Yes, and I think what's interesting about this that gives you like a sign of the times of the market is like there haven't been many other examples where there's so much demand and there's a lack of infrastructure to support it. But like a lot of, when you think of the different layers of the stack, big providers also have such pressure to keep growth up that they're literally creating new companies just to create more demand, right? You saw it with the Blackstone JVs. You see it here with KKR and NVIDIA playing in the business. So it's a little different. I don't know. Maybe this happened around the railroads or whatever. I'd have to go back and look at it. But the amount that the major players are just like, all right, let's invest with big money to create more companies to buy our stuff. That makes me a little nervous for sure, because they say there's like shortage of compute for the demand of the usage application layer. But why these things, I'm sure there's a lot of strategic angles as to why you want to participate them and essentially be the provider. But it's a weird blending of commercial real estate, like deal making with technology, hyperscaler business models. Like we're in very uncharted territory now. I think the guy behind this is a guy, Adam Silipsky. I think I'm saying that right. I believe he was AWS. I think he built like the largest cloud. So now he's building the infrastructure under the next cloud. And that guy, very, very smart guy. I would trust that he probably knows where this is going, but it's definitely a little bit of new territory.
All I think about when I hear KKR is barbarians at the gate.
Yep.
Anyways, quick hit number 6. We've talked about this a bunch, but we got to mention it. We talk about commercial real estate. This is a sort of intersection of commercial real estate, quantum cities, infrastructure, AI, all that sort of stuff, tech show. But leasing numbers have been just boring lately because they've been to a degree up and to the right, but we got to report on it. Manhattan office leasing hit 4.2 million square feet in May. Keep it 2026 on track for its strongest year since 2000. Listen, we can say is office back? Are people coming back to the office? Again, I hate having those conversations. I'm so tired of them. Yeah. But the numbers are they continue to improve. We've talked about the K curve though. They don't improve. They don't improve equally across the market. But New York City is having a moment here in 2026. We know SF's having a moment because of all the liquidity that is soon to flood the market once the lockup period ends for SpaceX and soon to be whatever it is, Anthropic and OpenAI's IPOs. But this is good news. This is good news all around.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is the report said that multifamily is actually the weakest on oversupply, which we talk a lot about housing crises, and I've talked in the past on, I think that's too blunt of an analysis, right? I think it's location and maybe quality near economic opportunity of housing, and there's probably a pricing issue, but I don't think I don't actually think it's a denominator issue. So interesting to see that proven here in the data, where it's like multi is weakest on oversupply, and then it's the tale of two cities where capital is abundant, but it's really only going to, essentially powered, industrial, or trophy, nothing going to anything else. JLL's credit index hit an all-time high in April, but it's just those things, right? So everything is is sorting. It's not really bleeding out. It's the K curve that we talk about all the time.
One more bit of news this week. We have a couple of things. They're all right around the same, but they'll be fun. The pop culture element. But we're going to bring it back to the start of the show. So we will mention this individual's name because she shouted it out on LinkedIn, but I can't help but thank her for the post. And I wanted to read a little bit about what she said. So KRE from Swig posted on LinkedIn publicly about the event that we hosted and that she attended. She opened with, "I came for the match. I left thinking differently about hospitality, AI, and the future of commercial real estate." That meant a lot, obviously, to me and to you and to the entire HQO team that put that on. Because again, these things can land flat, right? This isn't just meals and entertainment. It's not just a sort of stuffy conference room talking about AI. We take a lot of pride in this. But her biggest takeaway, in her words, which I thought was amazing, really got me thinking a little bit more, which I'll let you react to live on the air here, was what if hospitality is no longer an amenity, but infrastructure?
Well, I mean, I think she nailed it. I mean, this has been our belief for a while, right? In terms of experience, is it's not an app, right? It's every single touch point that the user of your asset has, I would say, with not just the asset, but the brand of the asset. So when they're there or not, hotel has understood this for a long time. Marriott Bonvoy, and how they try to cater to you when you're not necessarily staying at one of their hotels. The loyalty program, they want to have a relationship with you throughout your daily life. And I think commercial real estate needs to think of that infrastructure, think of it as infrastructure. So I think KRE, who is absolutely the best, by the way, what a fun human being and smart. I think she nailed that. So couldn't say it better myself.
Absolutely loved it. Second bit of news this week. Again, we talked about the World Cup. I think everybody's got World Cup fever. I think everybody, I didn't even think there was going to be this much World Cup fever. I was kind of like, yeah, great. It's a couple of soccer matches. Cool. What
an American offensive lineman point of view.
Literally
the biggest event in the world.
My God, are the mega stars putting on a show? And I say that, but like
everybody but Ronaldo is just showing up.
I mean, Messi's doing his thing, Mbappe's doing his thing, Haaland is doing it. These are names that even I know is not a huge soccer or football fan. They are doing it. Harry Kane's doing his thing. Could you have scripted a better start?
Everybody but Nani. Everybody
but Ronaldo.
Yeah. I mean, the U.S., we don't have the mega superstars, but Christian Pulisic, before he got pulled out, he was looking real good. It's going to be a great tournament. It's U.S. are at 3:00, buddy. Australia looked pretty good in that first game. They got some fast dudes up top. So I think this might be the game for winner of the group today.
Should be a good one. Okay, last bit of news, and I think what really sums this all together, you talked about why would these stadiums do this? They're not getting a cut, whatever it may be. Is there anything more fun than watching the Scots and the Norway folks take over the city of Boston right now? It is, I mean,
like marching around with like
marching around in their kilts. They drank Sam Adams Brewery. So a brewery, all they do is make beer. All they do is make beer. The brewery ran out. They ran out.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of places in the city apparently ran out of beer.
And then doing, I forget what it's called, the Norway Road. They took over Fenway Park. They said it was like Game 7 World Series style Fenway Park. There was dangerous decibel levels for some random game in June because the Scots took over. The Scots then went to Nantucket and took over Cisco Brewery. Some of the Norway folks were rowing up the escalator at TD Garden the other day. I mean, if you think about, again, what the amazing thing this is doing to the cities, it's truly bringing Boston. And again, we were in LA for a little bit, but the impact it's having in Boston is truly incredible. Say what you will about FIFA and whatever it is, all the stuff in the past. They're doing a really good job partnering with some of these cities, really building community, really showcasing all the different cultural vibes. It's been really fun to watch. I can't wait for the next, couple of weeks that we still have left here.
Yeah, it's going to be great, Tony.
Awesome. Hey, that's the show. show 33, F33. Great recap. We got a lot of stuff. Happening. Thanks for coming out. Stay tuned. If you liked what you heard about the cab, feel free to reach out. You guys got my email address. You can comment. My email address is just gg@hqo. We're going to be hosting these throughout the year. Like I said, we have our EMEA folks coming in next week. So that'll be the main element of the show, which is super exciting. Summertime's kicking off. We're thrilled. Thanks, everyone.
Great job.
Cheers. Go USA.